So, you ever get that feeling like English grammar is just a secret code? Like it changes its rules the exact second you think you finally cracked it? Well, if that sounds familiar, you are in exactly the right place. Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving deep and unlocking the hidden matrix of English by looking at advanced articles. You know, the way we interact with the world, how we categorize literally everything around us, it's heavily dictated by these tiny, seemingly insignificant words, an, and the. But once you hit the advanced level, these words start doing some really quirky things. We're going to decode these hidden rules together today so you can stop second-guessing yourself and start completely mastering the system.
Okay, let's kick things off with a quick riddle. Why do you play the piano, but you travel by plane? Seriously, why do we demand the for a musical instrument, but we absolutely banish it when we get on an aircraft? It's these kinds of everyday contradictions that really show off the absurdity of English grammar. But I promise you, there is actually a method to this madness, and it's absolutely fascinating once you start seeing the patterns.
All right, let's dive right into it. Here's our roadmap for conquering these confusing rules today. First up, classifying things and people. Second, health, sickness, and articles. Third, time and transportation idioms. And finally, we'll wrap up with regional quirks and exceptions.
So Section 1, classifying things and people, moving from species all the way to society.
This right here brilliantly illustrates how English gives us different tools for totally different contexts. Think about a formal, scientific statement, like, the tiger is a solitary hunter. Using the plus a singular noun is our formal way of referencing the entire species as a whole. You're definitely going to hear that in a nature documentary. But compare that with something like, a tiger is a dangerous animal. Using a or an plus a singular noun is what we call representative. You're just talking about any typical member of that species. It's like one is viewing the tiger from a textbook and the other is warning you about the tiger standing right in front of you.
But honestly, here is what you really need to take away for your everyday life. Tigers are solitary hunters. Notice what's missing there. Yup, no article at all. This zero article structure paired with a plural noun is actually the most common casual way native speakers communicate this idea. So, pro tip, when you're in doubt during a casual conversation, just drop the article entirely and make it plural. But, of course, English being English, we've got a very stubborn exception to that rule when it comes to human creations. When we talk about musical instruments and inventions, we almost always use the. For example, you'd ask, who invented the telephone? Or you'd compliment someone by saying, she plays the piano beautifully. It honestly doesn't matter if you aren't talking about a specific telephone or a specific piano sitting in the room. The invention or instrument itself demands the word the. And hey, that actually solves the first half of our riddle from the beginning of the explainer.
Now, let's build on this whole idea of classifying groups. You can literally just take an adjective, slap a the in front of it, and boom, you've transformed it into a plural noun. For example, the rich, the elderly, the unemployed. By combining the with an adjective, you instantly refer to an entire group of people who share that characteristic. And you got to remember, this structure is always treated as plural. If you say the government must do more to help the unemployed, you are super efficiently talking about all unemployed people everywhere.
Moving right along to Section 2, health, sickness, and articles. Time to navigate the medical matrix. Ever wonder why catching the flu feels grammatically totally different from catching a cold? Well, I've broken down these tricky medical rules into a pretty clean cheat sheet for you. We've got our zero-article diseases, things like cancer, malaria, diabetes, COVID-19. Then we have common ailments with an optional V, like flu, measles, and mumps. You can totally say she caught flu or she caught the flu. Both work. And finally, we have the indefinite articles a or an, a headache, a cold, a cough, a fever.
The really fascinating part here is the hidden logic driving these categories. When you're talking about a major disease, like diabetes, it takes zero article. You simply say, he has diabetes. But for a temporary symptom or ache, that demands an a or an an. You say, I have a headache. Think of the serious overarching conditions as uncountable forces, so no article. And think of the passing symptoms as individual countable events. They get an A. Kind of makes sense when you look at it that way, right?
All right, Section 3, time and transportation idioms, navigating daily routines.
Now, this is where English grammar basically just throws its hands up, ignores standard logic, and demands that we simply memorize a few idiomatic phrases. Let's talk about how you get around. The standard rule here is incredibly simple. When you use the word by to describe how you travel, you must use the zero article. It is by car, by bus, by train, by plane. Fast, efficient, and absolutely no articles in sight. And there it is. That answers the second half of our opening riddle.
But wait, because it wouldn't be English without a massive exception, right? The exact moment you describe a specific vehicle, you are suddenly forced to use articles, and you actually have to change the preposition entirely. You can't say by a car, you have to say in a car. You don't say by the 8 a.m. train, you say on the 8 a.m. train. It's like specificity acts like a magnet. It just attracts the articles right back into the sentence.
You see this exact same kind of whiplash with our daily schedules. For most of the day, we use the. In the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening. But the second the sun goes down or we hit a specific point on the clock, we completely switch over to the zero article. At night, at noon, at midnight. Now, why is it in the evening but at night? Look, there's no grand philosophical reason here. It's simply a matrix of idioms you just have to internalize.
And that brings us to our final stop, Section 4, Regional Quirks and Exceptions. Let's get hyper-specific.
Look, if you've ever been driven crazy by regional differences, I totally commiserate with you. Just take this classic split regarding institutions. American English insists on the article, he is in the hospital. But British English treats the hospital almost more like a state of being rather than a physical building, dropping the article entirely to say, he is in hospital. The crazy thing is, both are perfectly correct in their own regions, which just goes to show how culture completely shapes these tiny grammatical choices.
So the absolute key to our final major rule is understanding how context restricts a noun. Specifically, we're talking about the restrictive of clause. When a noun phrase contains an of clause that narrows down exactly what we are talking about, it makes that noun hyper-specific, and it suddenly, without fail, demands the word the.
Let's give you a real aha moment to lock this in. If you make a general statement like, history is interesting, general history gets the zero article. But the moment we add the phrase of Rome, we have restricted that noun. We aren't just talking about all history anymore. That little addition of Rome forces the previously article-free word history to adopt a the. It becomes the history of Rome is fascinating.
Which brings us to a final thought for you to chew on, applying that exact restrictive of rule we just learned. What is the history of your English learning journey? The rules we explored today, from playing the piano to traveling by plane, from catching a cold to avoiding the flu, they might seem like a hidden matrix at first. But once you see these patterns, the logic is actually crystal clear. Keep seeking out these structures. Soon enough, these advanced quirks won't be exceptions you fear, but tools you use with absolute confidence. Thank you so much for diving into this explainer with me. Keep learning, and I'll see you next time.